I turn my mic on. 6 o'clock, we're going to get going with this city council meeting. It is May 28th, 2024, and we are down in the mill live, and we are also recording this on Zoom, which we will later post on our YouTube channel. So with that, I would call the meeting to order and ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, great. And Clerk Schilling, can we get a roll call, please?
All right, Councilmember Daughtry,
Present.
Councilmember Peters Hagen,
Present.
Councilmember Donahue,
Present.
Councilmember Shipman. Present. Councilmember Jarstad. Present. Councilmember Ewing,
Present.
Councilmember Tagent. I have not heard.
I heard he was going to try to call in, but obviously he's not online. So I guess motion to excuse would be appropriate.
Okay, can I get a motion to excuse Councilmember?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion second, any discussion?
I was.
And any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor
Aye.
and any opposed? All right. So, Council President, can we get an approval of the agenda, please?
Yes, you can. There's one small change, though. I've talked to a couple of council members about item 10D, the agreement for block safety program. I'd like to move that from the consent agenda to action items so we can have a discussion on it. And see where things are at. So any other changes or suggestions?
Move to approve the agenda with this suggested change.
Got a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the amended agenda?
Aye.
You have an approved agenda.
Great, thanks, President. All right, let's go to Chief Azizo with oath of office for Corporal Lyons.
Mayor, thank you for this time. We're going to swear in our newest corporal. Chris was born in Western Texas and moved to Washington with his family during his teenage years. Growing up with the majority of Snohomish County, Chris graduated from Snohomish High School while playing baseball and football. With his love and passion for sports, Chris continued his education, became a nationally certified American College of Sports Medicine health fitness instructor and a Washington State licensed massage practitioner. Amongst his 18-year career in the health and fitness industry, Chris opened and ran 2 successful personal training gyms, businesses in Lake Stevens and in Everett. Chris pursued his desire to contribute to the community and be a part of something larger than himself, where he applied and was inspired by Lake Stevens Police Department on December 1st, 2014. Chris has successfully completed the 720-hour Washington Police Training Academy, Criminal Justice Training Center in May of 2015. While working for patrol for LSPD, Chris has remained in good working relations, always seeks to develop new existing working relationships within LSPD, along with their surrounding agencies. Chris strives to provide the best service possible to the city of Lake Stevens and its citizens. Chris is now approaching his 10-year work anniversary and states he had the privilege and opportunity to work in line with several inspiring corporals, sergeants, and command staff. Chris hopes, leading by example, he can continue to provide the same inspiration for current and new patrol officers within our department. On May 1st, 2024, Corporal Lyons was assigned to the patrol unit. Chris's wife Renee is here to pin on his badge. Come on up, Renee. Won't you, Rick? We're gonna have a pinning but a slapping because it's spelled right. I mean, that's close. You gotta present the teams.
All right. All right. Raise your hand. I, Chris Lyons.
I, Chris Lyons,
You solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
to support and defend
I will support
the Constitution and laws of the United
the
States,
Constitution and laws of the United States,
Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
Constitution laws of the state of Washington,
the ordinances of the city of Lake Stevens,
ordinances of Lake Stevens,
and the mission and regulations
and missions and regulations
of the Lake Stevens Police Department,
of the Lake Stevens Police Department.
and that I will faithfully and impartially
I will
faithfully
faithfully
and impartially perform and discharge
perform and discharge
the duties
the duties
as a Lake Stevens Police Corporal
of the Lake Stevens Police Department
according to law
for the law
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Congratulations.
That does.
You know, Chris. Congratulations. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm getting better at those with the police officers. I, having been one, understand that we all suffer from shiny penny syndrome and even within 3 or 4 words, we're looking for a squirrel somewhere. So I'll work on it, Chris. All right, with that, let's go to citizens' comments. We've got, I've got 4 here, and I think we have 1 online. Is that correct?
I see one hand. Yep.
Okay, so let's do the 1 online first.
This is Vilden. Vilden, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear it. This is Vildan Kirby.
Hi, Vildan. All right, and Council Vildan's asked me to share screen for a picture she wants to talk to, and if that's okay, I'm going to pull that up.
Okay.
And I'm doing that right now. And okay, Vildan, your 3 minutes starts now.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And Mayor Gailey, council members, thank you so much for your service. I am here tonight to talk about the Cavallero traffic. Although this will not benefit me because as we are done with Cavallero in about a month, this has been such a point right there, a very much backup on the 20th Street, turning right to Cavallero Road. Right there, the right lane starts. That's where it starts, and 20th Street starts being the double lanes. Right there, I am wishing that you all can approve and put it in work to make that one short right turn only. What happens is every morning, some of the cars through the traffic, they back up there, but they're going to go straight, actually, not turn into Cavallero. And a few moments that we can find when the traffic light changes, that person in a car is blocking us turning to Cavallero. And if you have a teenager, and you will, I'm hoping you will understand this, that those precious couple of minutes are so important to us grown-ups because we want to get rid of our grumpy teenager as quickly as possible. So, so that's my wish. That's my reason here. Just want that one short line. Is there a possibility that we can make it right turn only, and then people can go into the double lane after that lane? Is that understandable?
It is, and we'll take a look
Okay.
at it. I appreciate your bringing that to the council.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Next, we've got in person. Let's start with Nathan Packard. If you want to take the microphone, please.
Hi, Nathan Packard, 117th Drive Southeast. Just a couple of things from last week's workshop. One, I want to talk to fireworks, just share a few thoughts. Fully support the ordinance to keep fireworks out of the public space. Just once you start looking at the other ordinances that have been proposed towards, I will say, fully eliminating fireworks. I get that you're saying, okay, we're not going to eliminate everything, we're just getting rid of the aerials. My input is if you're getting rid of the aerials, you might as well get rid of everything, right? I'm not interested in smoke bombs, I'm not interested in little pink that will spark for a few minutes. And so I don't know what the answer is. If half the town wants them, half the town doesn't want them. You know, at some point, a decision could be made where half the people are angry at you. is there a solution that can get us to 75% of the people being happy? Maybe you're not doing outright ban, maybe you're cutting down anything that is above X grams of ordinance. Or we put tighter restrictions on the allowable times or something that still gives people the space to enjoy that activity and at least keep some of the people or the majority of the people happy. Having said that too, July 4th is the one night of the year that my whole neighborhood actually comes out and gets together. I rarely see any of my neighbors except on July 4th. But we all get together and enjoy being together on July 4th. It'd be a shame to lose that. So is there a win-win? Other topic real quick is on the stormwater issue that was discussed again last week. As an HOA president, we take care of our stormwater facilities. We put in the money, we do our due diligence, we do what we need to do. It would be very frustrating to us if we were somehow penalized to compensate for the shortcomings of all the other people. Also, as a citizen, I do not want to see the city taking responsibility for all of the stormwater facilities. That seems like an enormous undertaking, big government, all those type of things. You penalize the people that aren't performing, get them right, and find a way to reach a solution there. But I don't see a need to affect everybody else. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Nathan. Next up, Dan Devine.
Dan Devine, 123rd Avenue Northeast. I just want to take a few minutes to find out, and come up in person and express my opinion. I think I wrote a letter to all of you about an instance I had regarding the fireworks situation. I myself have lived here for 30 years and I respect the rights of everyone and I've seen it go full gambit. But I've also had an instance where, the lot next to my house, almost burned down one time because of the fireworks. And, I didn't know about it until the, fire crew arrived, the brush crew, and I asked them how they found out. They said they had a spotter on the hill. And they saw a puff of smoke and it had come from an illegal firework. So I was a little concerned about that. And I also had this, the first person that attested to, I've come and congregated with some of my neighbors over the 4th of July. And I've noticed a lot of outsiders coming in the last couple of years as other people prohibit them. And I started doing a little survey asking where people were from, Marysville, all other areas that are prohibited. We're kind of an oasis here, a safe haven, if you will, that will allow for these fireworks to be discharged, even though they're illegal. So I'm seeing it get kind of on the high side. I don't want to see for myself what people have thought about it. I'm fully aware of the advisory vote that was taken a couple of years ago. I know it's not binding. I'd be interested if anyone would want to run an advisory vote on July 5th or January 2nd to see what people thought. But my thought is it better be safe than sorry. One of these days, it's going to result in something that's not good. Now, we have an unusual circumstance here where we have a reservation that sells fireworks that may not be able to be sold around here locally. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. And Bruce Martin.
Good morning, very good. Here again, speaking about wall cameras, these surveillance cameras that we're going to be putting around the city to watch us on our every move. During the discussion a couple weeks ago with the police, there was a question asked of how many cameras could there be in the future? We could not answer. Well, I can give you some guesses. If you go onto Google and you put in transparency.flocksafety.com, you'll see all of the transparency sites for all the cameras. Not every city has a transparency site, but many do. Yakima was the first city in the state of Washington to adopt this a few years ago. I don't know exactly when. They currently have 42 cameras all over their city. So there was also a question after a couple of years, we're going to do a study, we're going to decide how well this system is working. And what we thought was, well, if it is working, then, or if we're asking for more cameras, that means it's working. Well, I would think that if the police are asking for more cameras, that means that's not working. They need more. They need more information. They're not getting good enough coverage. These cameras have a narrow focus and a short range. Per intersection, you gotta have 4 cameras per intersection. $12,000 per intersection. How many intersections do we have? A lot. That's a lot of money. And I don't like to be watched, especially when it comes to tree crime. You're recording license plates of people who have not done anything yet. But if they do something, you can rewind time and find out where they've been. I don't think that's, I don't think that's what we do in this country. If there's a watch list, catch them from the watch list. But don't hold on to that data and then rewind time to do your investigation. And finally, there is one feature in these cameras that they haven't talked about, and that is that they do record sound, or that is the future that is possible. I don't want to be listened to all the time. So my request is, if you do it, first of all, don't do it. If you do it, don't add any more. You, and also have data retention to be 3 minutes, which is what the ACLU recommends, and don't turn on the fire.
Thanks, Bruce. And Mark Summers.
I don't want to shift gears a little bit, concerning the fireworks and tonight's action item. I'm not gonna get into that in a little bit. Because really what I want to talk about is further subject fireworks. Go ahead with the action item. I think we need to start right away, start thinking forward in the future, and I'm in favor of okay. We also in our neighborhood, I live on a cul-de-sac. We have a get together every year too. It's really nice. We look the really fellows, and also Dan's comments. I agree with all that. I believe we need to go further in the city. Have a problem with the results of these illegal fireworks that accumulate here. The next day, or newspaper, a story about all the smoke bubbling over the city. Our city is most such a state that we all like 4th of July. You can still gather. We'll gather during the day, have a picnic in the driveway. But in the evening, I'd like to see us go to a community part of this evening. A barge on the lake, that those has to be worked out. The cost of that would be high. It may take years. I would come here every year, advocate for a change, for us as a community, or community, the other way together. I don't have a closing statement. Other than we're getting close. We have votes on the council. I think Mayor, I'll continue to meet with you. I should meet up and talk this over. But I definitely believe I'm still going to make it tonight. I feel strongly going that direction. And we've spoken with our neighbors about it. Number that we and people have to grow to a large size to happen. And we have 3 minutes.
2 minutes and 37 seconds.
Thank you, Mark. All right, great. Great comments tonight. Let's go, Council President, Council Business.
Council business. How about if we start out with Councilmember Ewing?
Just wanted to thank all those responsible for the Memorial Day activity yesterday at the War Memorial. Really well attended. And I guess one thing that stood out to me, one, the number of children that were there with their families was very impressive, especially young children. And also the number that stood out to me, 35 million people have served in the military in the last 100 years, and 500,000, more than 500,000 have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. The other thing, our planning commission is doing some pretty outstanding work, and I understand they have public meetings coming up June 3rd and June 17th for a comprehensive plan. So just invite the public and anyone interested to see firsthand the good work they're doing 6 p.m. here at the mill, June 3rd and June 17th.
Councilmember Georgetown,
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Shipman.
Excuse me. I attended the school board meeting on last Wednesday, and it was a retiree celebration. They had 31 employees retire. So quite a few retired, but they had 6 employees that they celebrated 25 years of service. So that's quite a statement to have 6 employees with you for 25 years. They highlighted Hillcrest, Highland, and the Highly Capable program. Lastly, they added a new policy number 5585, which is hate speech and bias incident policy. So they discussed that a little bit, and they updated their school code as well as the athletic code. And they had some athletic members and their families in support in the audience for that. So that's something new that was just drafted. And I met our new superintendent, Dr. Templeton, and spoke with her for a few minutes. She would like to meet us. Of course, she's swamped because she's still in Washougal as well as here. And so she was thinking maybe July, but we're on break in July. So maybe in August before the school starts back up again. So I'm not quite sure, how we go about setting that up, because she just would like to come talk to us.
I just whispered in his ear.
Yeah, we can set that up.
Okay.
We know people.
Perfect. And then this is the War Memorial as well. On Monday, it's always a moving ceremony. And like Steve said, there was a good turnout. It was very much a family event. So that was a heartwarming thing to experience.
Good, thank you. What night is graduation, high school graduation?
Tuesday, the 11th, is it the 11th? Tuesday, the 11th.
Okay, great, thank you. Councilmember Donahue.
Nothing for me.
Councilmember Daughtry.
Nothing for me.
The only thing I would add, I think the Trestle survey is still up on the website, so I would encourage you all to participate in that. So get our feedback to WashDOT. And then we do have WashDOT coming on June 18th, is it? For presentations. So if you're interested in attending and watching that, we'd certainly welcome you here. So thank you.
Great. So we might want to look at that June graduation date, see if we want to flex on our meeting June 10th.
June 11th. It's a
Oh, that is
Tuesday.
our council night.
Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, we might want to look at that. I know several of us here like to attend that. So let's take a look at that as far as our scheduling. As far as mayor's business, I would like to recognize that today is Councilmember Kim Daughtry's birthday. Turning,
Oh, happy birthday.
is it 25 or 26?
I think I got to 26 finally.
Okay, all right, good.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday. And let's see, I as well attended the Memorial Day service yesterday, and big thank you to Legion Post 181. Dan was part of that ceremony yesterday. They always do a great job recognizing the sacrifices of our military folks. And the week ahead, next week, we are going to get our look at APWA accreditation. Very exciting. What are we, almost 3 years worth of work into getting to this spot, and we have some anxious folks in Public Works who will be looking at that process next week and seeing if we're there and what we got to fix and not fix and move forward. So I'm anxious, but I'm super optimistic. Folks in Pebble Works have been doing a great job. Okay, great. Let's go to, looks like I've got 2 department reports. Let's go with Clerk Kelly Chellen.
Hello, Mayor and Council. All right, I'm here to talk about the council recess dates. So it'd be nice, I think for staff and probably for you guys too, to kind of plan on what those recess dates are going to look like. So kind of going off of what we did last year, we're proposing taking a break from July 23rd, 2024 to August 20th. So last council meeting before that recess would be July 16th. It is scheduled to be a workshop right now. We may turn that into a special meeting if we need to take action before the break. And then the next council meeting after the recess would be August 27th. So just curious if those dates look good to you guys and we can kind of start planning on that recess. And then if we need a special meeting, we can always notice one. And I'll get a hold of you guys if we need to take care of business. And that's my report.
Thumbs up.
Sounds great.
Thumbs down.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, so with that, I'd like to just make sure that you think about what do you need to know before you go on that recess, so we can make sure we get that on the calendar before we break. All right, and looks like we've got a IT department staff report from Troy.
Good, we do. Good evening, council. This is kind of just giving us up to date on to where we're at today. I put into the package just some high level accomplishments and some of the things that are going on in the IT department. And I just wanted to just touch on a few of those things so you can read the details. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask me. But some of the big highlights that we had is the body worn camera program was a major project with undertaking. There was a lot of work that IT had to do, build some scaffolding to get this to work. We were basically left dry with the vendors with no path forward. So Nick really spearheaded that whole operation and developed API integration and coding. Lots of testing, debugging off of that, and finally eventually got that process completed, which was huge amount of work, and just kudos to him off of that. That same integration work that he did actually helped us to also do some data migration of some flat files that we actually had in our public drive that need to get migrated into Axon as well. So that was a huge undertaking. And then the next one was the security program. This year, one of our primary objectives has been basically developing out our security program, and with that is developing an IT governance and a risk management for IT. So to date, we've established a structure that's been adopted. We have an IT committee that's up and running, and we've got these meetings where this is kind of allowing for this a shared responsibility for taking control of IT resources and how we're moving forward with that. So with that, we've developed new processes to review software security as they come through. And to date, we've gone through and reviewed about 8 programs and making sure that they're meeting security requirements for the organization. So with that being said, and a lot of this stuff is aligning with the NIST framework that we've all adopted, by resolution. So and with that, one of the things that's required is part of that adoption in the NIST framework that we had by resolution. It opens us up to grant opportunities. And so we actually took advantage of that this year. It's the first time that the Lake Stevens Department actually applied for a grant. And this was really targeted towards organizations that don't have these formalized structures in place that, is helping us to get up to code. So we've got 3 major projects that we actually looked at applying for, which is going to help increase our opportunities to be able to get that. There's been a total of it's $172,000, over $172,000 in money that we've applied for. And really we've got Olivia and Nick and Carr, who's been working on making those projects come to pass. And so you can read about some of those things, but mainly it's a PKI infrastructure and some system monitoring tools, as well as a third-party risk assessment once we get our framework built. So that's kind of the project off of that. So I hope to have more of these down. So I'm hoping that quarterly I'll give you some more updates on projects that are currently going through and just keep you updated on how we're doing in the department. So. There you go.
Great. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
All right, let's go. So can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda? And remember on that we moved item 10D to action.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to pass the consent agenda. Any discussion?
I don't have a discussion. I have a comment. I just want to thank city staff. Item I, the Transportation Improvement Board grant agreement. City secured $450,000 grant to augment our sidewalk transportation improvement district. So a special thank you to Public Works for their efforts to maximize the dollars we have with that to help make our community more walkable and safe.
Yeah. Also along with that, Representative Sam Lowe. He helped push that forward on the TIB. So.
Mayor Gailey, before you take that vote, Anya has one quick clarification to an item on the consent agenda for the record. So
Okay,
I'll
go
let
ahead.
her go ahead and state that.
On page 185 on the Parks Ranger MOU, we just wanted to clarify, we did go through and track change in our diligent review. We noticed that there was a comma in a very important place. Shouldn't have been a comma. And it's in column step G of the pay. The pay should say $6,477.42, not 6,477,000. So I just wanted to clarify for the record, Teamsters is where they passed the MOU today with that clerical change. So I just wanted to put that on the record for your vote.
Thank you.
So much more to say. Anyway, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, pass the consent agenda. Let's go ahead and take up item 10D first. The agreement for flock safety programs. Is that going to be, so I think, do we want, Chief, do you want to intro that and just see where our questions are? Where do you want to do that?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to publicly thank Commander Thomas for working on this while I have been gone on leave and a couple other things. We do have Flock online here. Kristen and Garrett McLeod and Garrett are here too. So if you have any more questions, they're available to answer those. So Dean has worked and had city legal review the contract, which is a part of the packet tonight. And that's what is here for discussion and then a motion. I'll let Dean answer any questions you guys might have or Flock.
I'll open it up to council.
I'll just ask a quick question. I did notice in one of the commenters tonight, noticed that there is potential for audible sound to be recorded. Is that an extra cost? Is that something that needs to change the system? Or I'm assuming you're not looking to implement that at this time, but I'm just wondering, is that an upgraded version or is that something that would impact the cost for this if you chose to do that?
Yeah, that's something that we are not interested in. That is a completely separate piece of hardware. It's called Raven. It's better known if you ask around other cities as shot detection. That's what it's for. You could set it up. And I know Everett, for instance, some of their high crime area, they're looking to get shot detection. We're not interested in any kind of audio, LPR only.
Shock, like gunshots?
Gunshot, yep.
Okay.
Or,
All right.
I mean, I suppose you could set up for fireworks too, but probably not a great discussion at this time.
Probably.
Probably want to turn that off at 4th of July.
Probably. It really tests their system on the 4th.
Right.
around here.
Thank you.
I had a question. It was helpful to see a copy of the agreement. So thank you. It brought up a few questions that I had. Section 4.3 defines anonymized data and how they have the right to collect, analyze, and anonymize customer data and customer generated data. And we talked a little bit about that at our workshop last week. And then in section, oh, I'm sorry. Let me finish with this. I want to make sure that I am understanding that the data that they collect and anonymize and then use for their own purposes, there's no oversight of this process. Is that correct? There's no entity that audits Flock or that oversees this to ensure that what they say they're doing with the data actually happens. Is that accurate?
Kristen, do you want to explain that a little bit better?
Sure. Thank you so much. Good evening, council members, mayor. So with that, we're storing the data in the AWS government cloud, and we abide by those policies as far as data retention. And then the anonymized data, all of that is coming to us is completely washed of metadata. So location, it's simply, we are taking those still images and we are training our machine learning to more efficiently and better identify vehicles.
And that process isn't audited by any outside entity. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Thank you. The other item I just want to point out and was sort of a surprise to me, and I don't know if there's any further information to provide about this. The section 5.3 disclosure of footage. Subject to and during the retention period, Flock may access, use, preserve, and or disclose the footage to law enforcement authorities, government officials, and or third parties if legally required to do so. Or if Flock has a good faith belief that such access, use, preservation, or disclosure is reasonably necessary to comply with a legal process. So the way that I'm understanding that is that there's data in the Flock cameras. It's during the retention period. Another government entity outside of Lake Stevens, potentially outside of the state of Washington, if they have a reason to request that data, or you believe there's a legal reason, you can disclose that information, our city's information, to a third party or to another government entity. Is that accurate?
That would, oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, just to me, the phrase "if legally required" means, in essence, in this case, there's going to be a subpoena that's been issued through a judicial process. Now, the language, or if Flock has a good faith belief that such acts or use is reasonably necessary to comply with the legal process. I guess we could argue about what the extent of that language would mean, but I would assume that that would be language that would apply if Flock has been notified by someone. Look, we're going to court on Thursday and we expect to get a subpoena that they're going to hold on to it. Or if there's some litigation where there's a belief that we have some information that's going to be relevant to that judicial proceeding and actions are going to be taken to legally secure it, they're going to hold on to it. But Kristen, you can tell us differently, but I think that's generally the extent of what that language means.
Yes, that's correct.
So Greg, what does it take to get a subpoena to access that information? Like how much does it take to get a subpoena for that information?
Well, you're going to have somebody who's going to be behind, some law enforcement be behind with who's going to be able to make a sworn declaration that they know that the city has or is likely to have on its camera. It's not going to be somebody who just is guessing who would say, oh, they got a Flock camera there, so we want to be able to see whatever you got from that day. That's not going to cut it. There's going to have to be something more that they knew that X person or something driving whatever was in the city that day. And you're going to have to convince a judge that there's a strong likelihood, or actually that information is there. It's like the information that we have to give to secure, say, a search warrant. Okay, somebody's got to swear that they know, however, they've gotten the means for the information that in this house or location, we're going to find X types, we're going to find drugs, guns, whatever. So somebody's got to have some pretty good knowledge to be able to support that declaration. It's probably pretty unlikely that we're going to be receiving subpoenas of that nature with respect to this camera system, because the camera's recording, right, pictures of cars that go by. We have to submit here a request saying, look, we're looking for a, white Chevrolet license, whatever, to get that sort of information. So it's there. I think it's there for their protection and our protection. And if in fact there's another law enforcement agency that thinks that they have adequate information to support a subpoena, I suppose they can do it, but it's really difficult with the limited information that they're getting, that we're probably going to have that.
Just one more question regarding this section, and this is probably for Kristen. When it says flock may access, use, preserve, and or disclose the footage to law enforcement authorities, government officials, and or third parties, what would be an example of a third party that isn't law enforcement or government that would be able to access this data?
So I believe that covers our contract with Amazon Web Services, the government cloud, that entity. I can reach out to our legal and get examples of that for you and send them.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We need to continue on the vein that you are discussing here, because it's something in that if legally required to do so, or if Flock has good faith belief. Well, if they have good faith belief, that's not a subpoena.
No, that's just, no.
That's just them making a decision that, yeah, we think they need this.
Well, you have to read those sentences.
You got to read further.
If reasonably necessary to comply with the legal process, so they have to have a good faith. It's just not. That good faith belief has to be tied to some ongoing legal process where it's likely that that information is going to be judicially required for them to release that data. So it's just not, they're sitting around and they decide that they want to do it. They're going to have some kind of notice from probably a court, if not the FBI or the CIA or some law enforcement agency, that there's a belief that there's some information on that camera may have that's tied to a specific law enforcement matter. That's the only way that they're reasonable, that they think it's reasonably necessary, could be supported. It's not that we've looked at the camera and we've looked at pictures, because they're not doing that anyway, and we think something ought to be preserved.
So I think a key word in there is preserved. For example, if you're up to the edge of the, get rid of it, period, and you realize that that's probably going to have the evidence you have on it, you could ask for that good faith preservation of that while you go get a subpoena. I think that's what they're.
I mean, which I get that, but that's not what it says. I mean, it says preserve, but it also says access, use, and or disclose. And to Kim's point, and going, Greg, from what you said in terms of reading the whole sentence, yes, it says if the disclosure is reasonably necessary to comply with the legal process, but it goes on to say enforce this agreement or detect, prevent, or otherwise address security, privacy, fraud, or technical issues or emergency situations. So that to me says, to comply with the legal process is one reason, but there are 5 other reasons listed why there might be a good faith belief that accessing, using, preserving, or disclosing the information is reasonably necessary. It feels loose to me.
So this goes around to another question that was asked by one of the people in the audience, and that's how long do we keep the records? And I know what we're trying to do is keep them 30 days. Got that. It's been suggested by the ACLU to keep them for 3 minutes, which seems a little bit short. But my question then would be, talking about the 3 minutes versus 30 days type thing, or however many minutes. If we only keep the data for 30 or 3 minutes, or let's say 30 minutes, then is that useful to us when we're looking that a car goes through and the license plate comes up and you get, how much time do you need to get that notification before that data goes away off that camera?
That would completely depend, right? If there was a Amber Alert in Yakima or Spokane and it goes away in 30 minutes and they're heading our direction, we would have no clue. And when we're talking about data, it's a picture of the rear of the car.
No, I
that's
understand
it.
that. I think you're reversing it though. My way of understanding, let's say we have an Amber Alert that gets on your system, that goes on the police system, right? And then all of a sudden, let's say a few hours later, that car goes by one of our Flock cameras. Do we see that within 3 minutes?
Yes. When we get the alert that something drove by,
Yeah,
yeah, entered our flock camera.
right.
Kristen, do you have an exact number on that? I don't know if you would or not.
Yeah, so law enforcement officers will receive an alert within 20 seconds of a wanted vehicle passing by one of the cameras.
Okay, so what's the necessity to have it later, greater than 3 minutes?
Like I just explained, if somebody, Everett or Shoreline or Seattle had entered a car as in be on the lookout for, or a license plate for a homicide or a robbery, by the time we would get that car would enter our city, it would be already flushed if it was 3 minutes, right? If the retention was all just 3 minutes.
No, the retention doesn't start until they pass our camera.
Right, I can explain on this. So if we have a theft at a business, right? So that they figure out, or a burglary, somebody's been on vacation for 7 days, comes back, their house has been broken into over the weekend. They left on Friday, came back Sunday, and it's gone. So if you delete it in 30 minutes, all that information's gone before they even get home and report it to us. That's the progress of this, right? If there's a crime that's being committed, how long does it take to get reported? Then how long does it take to get to the officer to do the investigation? As you know, we're down 5 bodies now. To get that investigation with the 3 detectives that I have, how long does that whole process take to go in and search the information, do the investigation? That's why it's 30 minutes. Does that make sense? Or 30 days.
So to follow your story, someone comes back from vacation, they were gone a week and their house was robbed at some point. And their Ring camera shows a white Subaru Outback. What is the benefit then of whatever the flock camera would have or wouldn't have?
It may not have any value because we got the license plate off the Ring camera. But what's the chances of your Ring camera catching a license plate right in the area? So that's another tool that we use.
What if the Ring camera just shows a white car?
We can't do anything with it. We'd
Right.
have to go in and get a subpoena and get all that information.
So in that scenario that you just mentioned, the flock cameras really don't have any benefit.
Not unless it catches somebody going by in a white van where the other location is. And we go in and put a white van because it was involved in that burglary. And we see that person exiting outside at that day and time. And all we have is a license plate to begin that investigation. So the Ring camera may show a white van backing out of the driveway with a ladder on top of it, right? So we can go hit the flock cameras, put in our investigation, our case number, a white van with a ladder on top of it, and see if it went out of the city in the ingress or egress of the city and those flock cameras, and say, yes, it came into our city at such and such time on this such day. Is the license plate. So it gives us date, time, and a license plate, a picture of it. That's all it gives us. And then we begin our investigation from that information on that license plate. And we do the follow-up.
And if there are 7 white vans with ladders.
We have a lot of work to do to follow up on.
Think I'm gonna take a ladder off my white van.
I love using your
You
van
keep-
as an
you
example.
Keep
Mr.
bringing up
Doctor.
my van. What the-
So I have another question on section 4.3. So at the bottom of 4.2 and at the bottom of 4.3, there's an underlined sentence that says Flock does not own and shall not sell anonymized data. But there is a sentence in the middle of 4.3 where it says we are going to grant you the right to use and distribute the anonymized data to improve and enhance the services and for other development, diagnostic and corrective purposes and other Flock offerings. So I'm just curious, who is that data possibly going to be distributed to?
So that's another, as far as the distribution, I can get clarification on that. But really what it is it's taking the images that we're capturing. Again, it's washed of all of that, any sort of metadata that would even link an image to coming from Lake Stevens system, and training our machine learning to better identify the vehicles. But I can certainly get clarification for you on that piece.
Okay, yeah, that'd be helpful because I'm just curious if distribution includes entities outside of Flock, different divisions within Flock. What does that mean?
Sure, I will get clarification on that.
Any other questions for Jeff or the Boise State Bronco, Kristen?
I guess I'm probably putting the cart before the horse. So in the event this action passes, I want to know, and I guess even without that, the guidelines that we have to determine whether or not this program is successful. And I know we have a window, like I think it's 2-year or 3-year timeline, that we either continue, expand, or terminate based on the success of the program. But I don't clearly understand, based on information we have, what our criteria will be to determine whether or not this program is successful, or if that's too premature. But I would like something, because some of the concerns we have about expanding the program, we don't have clear criteria as far as what we want to see as far as success, then just don't want to invent it as we go along.
That'll be the onus on me and my staff, that we would track any Flock assisted investigations that we have.
So as I think of it, I have one more question, Greg. This is kind of for you, and it's kind of a nebulous hypothetical. So if you don't know, that's okay. And also for the Flock reps. So it's clear in the contract, we own the data, but there's the provisions that have been discussed for Flock, having to potentially preserve that data and release it to another entity. As the owners of the data, is there any requirement that we would be notified of our data being shared with somebody else? Or does this just give Flock the ability to do that quietly?
Flock would notify you first.
Okay. Is that in the agreement anywhere?
Wondering, is there a provision in the terms of service that say that before we would do that, or tell you?
That I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing that. Read it anywhere.
I have to talk to legal, but would it be possible to add that?
Flock? If we add that provision, that you will notify us, within 24 hours or whatever, if you exercise these rights.
We can, we will absolutely get that to our legal team for sure.
Okay, thank you. Because for what it's worth,
Review.
yeah, for what it's worth, I think, at least for me, that would be helpful. If there's a good faith belief, we have to know it happened first to kind of follow up on that and make sure it was reasonable and all of that. So that would be helpful for me.
Kind of sounds to me, do we want to table this topic until we get a little more info from Kristen? All right, can I get a motion for that?
A motion to
table
the decision on this contract.
I move to table originally item 10D to a later date until we receive clarification from Flock regarding the questions that were asked tonight.
Second.
Greg, do they have to give a specific date?
No.
Okay.
They can.
No.
I just heard that.
They have the prerogative to be.
Okay.
Or general.
Yeah, we can table it and then it'll just takes a motion to bring it back off the table to discuss. So it should be.
Well, not necessarily. If you tie bringing it back to a specific facts or events in your motion says when we've received the answer to those questions, then we'll review it again. So I think that once we get that information, then we can work through the clerks and the agendas to put it back on the agenda.
To that effect, do we have a ballpark from Flock on when we could expect those answers? And I know it involves legal, so don't worry if the answer is no.
Yep, I'm not sure. I will get all of this over to our legal team, and I know we certainly want to have a quick response time. So, but unfortunately, I can't guarantee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion to table and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion on this motion?
I do have one additional question about the flock system. As far as how common is it to subpoena cell phone data? I'm thinking about a case that just was today where there was a homicide at Costco in Tukwila that was used to ping the vehicle. And I said that they ping the cell phone data to tie that person to the locations. The person, after committed the crime, then used a burner phone. So the phone was immediately after the homicide, went to a burner phone. They were able to ping that burner phone and tie it exactly to his home and ping that. And so that's where they're able to locate one of the two suspects. So for me, I hear the concerns, I share the concerns about privacy, but our cell phone data is used constantly. And anytime there's a crime, they can ping where you sent your text message, they can ping where your phone is within a couple feet within anywhere. And so just for my own curiosity, I would know if it's reasonably available, how often cell phone data is tied to flock data as far as helping solve crimes, I guess, or issues that we use the flock camera for.
Flock, like I explained the last time I was here, it's a force multiplier. So it would be part of that. When we're talking about search warrants or pinging a phone, it has to be probable cause or exigency. With that cell phone, it has nothing to do with flock or your license plate or the rear. There's no expectation of privacy for the rear of your vehicle, right? There's more privacy in flock than the next time you stop at a stoplight and the person in back of you takes a picture of your rear of your car and you don't know about. That's what we're talking about is a picture. So with that is, it's a rabbit hole that can go in, but it's a force multiplier that we would use in an investigation to, like you said, ping in a phone. And then we could say like, well, let's see if he went through Lake Stevens on a flock, and they would add the two together to help with the probable cause down the road for a possible arrest.
Yeah, I would guess that if you had a little spare time and you spent several hours reviewing the terms of service on your cell phone and compared it to the flock contract.
And the apps that you click
This
okay
is
and consent to.
pretty minimal. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the difference though is I consent to getting a cell phone.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion on the tabling of this item? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion there, this item is tabled till further action. All right, let's go to action item 11A with Lori Erickson, contract with Atkins. How do we say that, French or?
Realis, I think.
For facility asset inventory and asset conditioning rating.
Okay, here we go. Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Lori Erickson. I am the Public Works Analyst. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting a proposal to help us complete our facility asset inventory. When I use the word inventory, what I'm really talking about is our buildings and the assets that are within the buildings themselves. This proposal also includes what we would like to do to complete an asset condition assessment. Before I get started, I want to highlight that last week we did have a council member ask a question about facility condition data. And before making a decision regarding a future facilities division within Public Works. This proposal is related and it will help us in lots of other ways as well. So let's go ahead and move forward. The topics that I will cover tonight include giving a little bit of background on why it is that we are even asking for this proposal to be considered. I'll go over what some of the challenges have been, along with going over some of the highlights within the proposed contract. There are some budget impacts, so I'll give an overview on what those are, and we'll wrap up with some next steps. All right, so as far as background, in 2023, the city began re-implementation of the ViewWorks asset management system. This is a system that the city previously had, but for numerous reasons, it wasn't built out to its fullest capability. And so in 2023, we restarted that effort and really started getting clear on what are our business processes, what are the best ways to utilize the system, and try to mine that system for data to give us more knowledge. Where we started with this re-implementation was getting really clear on building out the work order and service request modules, including the Citizen View portal. That Citizen View portal is the portal. It's also an application on mobile that anybody in the city can use to report a pothole or an issue anywhere in the city. And as far as where we are today, so we have those first module or two with the work orders and service requests built out. And what we've also done is we've taken the time to build out, it's called a template for the facilities module, which is capable of helping us to document facilities, assets within the facilities, and the condition of those assets within the buildings. Also, this module can help us with setting preventative maintenance schedules and replacement schedules. So think about things like the roof, hot water heaters, HVAC systems. This module will help us to be able to better plan and expect when certain components within our buildings are expected to be at the end of their life and will be ready for replacement. Additionally, as we start to build out ViewWorks even more, we're going to have more and more robust reporting, which will again help us to be better positioned to make decisions, plan for budgeting, plan for projects, plan for staffing, you name it. Before I move forward too much further, I do want to provide a couple of definitions as we talk about this, in more detail. So when I say the word asset, what I want you to imagine is asset is defined as property. So it could be a building, a system, a component that is regarded as having value. When we say facility, in this case, we're really talking about our buildings, talking about City Hall, talking about the building we're in right now in the mill, you name it. So it's all of our buildings in the city. And the final definition is around facilities module. So again, we have this ViewWorks system. It has lots of different capabilities. And we have the ability to bring on more of those modules as we're ready to. And obviously, we have to take time to build those out to make them work for us. There are lots of other modules as well within the system that are being discussed, but for right now, those ones are not being worked on. And the final note there is just, I think I already mentioned it, but there was a question that came up last week when we did a presentation regarding a request to allow us to get a facilities division here at the city. And a question came up around, well, what's the current condition of our facilities? So timing wise, this is actually really perfect since we were coming to discuss tonight's proposal anyways. All right, so we have tried to do some problem solving before coming to you tonight. So what I want to do now is spend just a moment talking about some of the challenges that we are facing. As far as gathering the asset and condition information, there are two main challenges that we're faced with. The first one is time capacity. So So with our current streets and facilities division, we currently are experiencing limited bandwidth. And we also have a backlog of about 60 or so work orders, and those work orders are specific just to facilities. We have lots of others that are also in backlog for the streets team. The other challenge we have where we might have capacity is we are lacking the expertise. So for example, I actually tried to run an experiment. I came here to the mill and I was working with one of our facility maintenance technicians. And I tried to actually gather the information that would be needed to at least start the inventory part of this assessment. But however, without the technical expertise, I can't look at a hot water heater, for example, and have that knowledge to say, oh, it's about 50% through its life, or it's got about 5 years left. I just don't have that. So the two biggest challenges here are really time capacity and or expertise. So that leads us to the next piece. Without this information, planning for replacement schedules without the facility condition assessment is an educated guess at best. It puts us in a space where we're more reactive than proactive because we're having to respond to things closer to when they're at their end of their usable life. And also we have this ViewWorks system that has all kinds of cool bells and whistles capabilities we could use. But at this point, without this data in there, we just cannot fully utilize the capabilities within the system. So what is the proposal? Why am I here tonight talking to you about this? We ideally want to get vendor support to help us to gather this information. To give you a little bit of background on who Atkins Realis is, they are our vendor for the ViewWorks system. And they happen to have a team that they specialize in helping jurisdictions to gather this information and also enter it into the system for them. So what we would like to do is partner with Atkins Realis, have them send their team here on site. And over the course of somewhere between 5 and 10 business days, based on the number of square feet that we're asking them to help us inventory, they're going to catalog it all for us. They will go through building by building. They will look at the assets, gather the lots of information on those assets. I'll talk about that here in a minute. They'll take photos and they'll also do the condition assessment. One thing, I don't have it on this slide, but they also will write it's like a strategic plan for our facilities, and they'll make recommendations on where we should focus our efforts first. As far as what is currently scoped in the proposal, we're looking at doing 19 of our 22 facilities. And the contract amount is $67,920. All right, so what would that get us? What is in the contract? So Atkins Realis would look at all of those systems there on the left. So it's really a lot of the major components, a lot of high dollar value items should we need to replace or repair these items. So things like roof systems, the building exterior elements, structural systems, interior finishes, fixed furniture. So things that are like, bolted down or somehow permanent in place. Mechanical systems, including HVAC and plumbing, fire and life safety systems, conveyance systems, security systems, and other site systems. And then there on the right, those are the 19 sites, or the 19 facilities rather, that they would be inventorying for us. So to dive a little bit deeper as far as specifically what Atkins Realis would be gathering for us, we see that in that top graphic there. So they will be, for each of our assets, gathering the manufacturer information, model number, serial number, install date, things like that. And they have some definitions on like what those are. And then also for each of those assets, they would be giving us the facility condition index, which essentially is a calculation to say, based on the type of item that we're looking at and its current state of health per se. So is it in good condition or poor condition? It also includes a cost element there as well. And they will give us what that FCI, or facility condition index, is. The main thing to know about the FCI is for the higher ticket items that are more expensive to repair, those will get placed more towards the red part of that spectrum versus the green part of the spectrum. Okay, so as far as budget impacts, I've got some points here to cover at a high level. Kind of in a nutshell, Public Works does not currently have this money budgeted, but if approved, this money would be funded through a budget amendment in the future. And that would be for the amount of $67,920. As far as where the money comes from, about 92% of it would come from the general fund, 3% would come from the street fund, and 5% would come from the stormwater management fund. As far as proposed next steps, we would be asking that a budget amendment be brought forward in the future, that we finalize a contract, and we schedule that asset inventory and condition assessment as soon as possible. I'm sure there might be a few questions, and I'm happy to hear what those are.
I have one question. What was the decision factor that left 4 facilities off the list to be assessed?
Yeah, so it was 3 facilities that were left off. I've got those here in my notes. I figured somebody might ask. We did not decide to include the Lundin Pump House. Essentially, it's a facility that there's hardly anything there. And it's something that we could easily go and inventory ourselves in-house. The Grimm House is another one we decided not to inventory, along with the Cedar Wood Building. So the Cedar Wood Building, my understanding is it's not going to be around much longer. Doesn't make sense to inventory it.
So based on what you just said, why are we doing the City Hall? It's not going to be around much longer.
That's a good question. I might look to Aaron to help pipe in. I'm not sure what the future is of the current City Hall.
Well, a plan is moving City Hall over to Public Works for additional office space. So we'd want to.
I would think that would need to be reassessed as after it's moved.
Yeah. Or before to know if we should even move it.
Good point. Okay. Thought I'd ask the question.
I have a follow-up question on that. I think I saw the same thing that Councilmember Daughtry saw. Are you counting the police station and evidence building as 2 separate buildings?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so that's how we got the 19. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Oh, that's why I said 4 instead of
Yeah, it looks like 18, but it's 19.
simple math, 19.
It was hidden. No, I saw the same thing. It was hidden.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I have a
Any
couple
other
questions. On the slide, I think it's like the 3rd slide where it asks, it says, what challenges are we facing?
Mhm.
You note that the public works analyst attempted to take on the assessment, but just doesn't have the expertise. Is there anyone within public works that has the expertise to be able to do this assessment?
In short, the people who have the expertise to at least do most of it, they are underwater with other maintenance work.
That's what I was going to ask. So
Yeah.
if there are people that could do it, how long would it take them to be able to do this assessment, assuming they have other work that they also need to do?
Ooh,
Just
yeah, it would be a
total
guess
ballpark.
at best.
months, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
If not potentially longer.
if other things didn't break, yeah, I think even then it would probably be months.
Okay. And then my other question regarding the budget impact, what are the pros and cons of a budget amendment to do this work now versus waiting to determine if it makes sense to put it in the 2025 budget? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
Do you want me to?
That's okay. Do you want to weigh in, Aaron?
I'm certainly happy to. So, my name is Aaron Halverson. For those in the audience, I'm the city's public works director. I think that's a really good question, Councilmember Jorstad. And so, the city just recently acquired another 20,000 square feet of building space, conditioned space. So we're over 100,000 square feet of conditioned space. We don't have a facilities division within Public Works. And so what we do is we have our streets crew and sometimes our stormwater crew perform facilities maintenance. This is an opportunity cost. So this is something we should do to prepare for the budget in 2025. We should go out and assess our facilities so we know how much we should be setting aside as a city to make sure the facilities meet our needs. One of the things I stress with my team constantly is the public interacts with the city at these facilities. We need to make sure we know what we have, that it's in really very good condition, as they would expect a government building to be, hopefully. And that should be our standard of service. And so performing this assessment is just, we're at a critical point. Could we wait until 25? Sure. That's going to delay everything by a year. You know, in terms of setting aside any future funds to maintain the buildings. I advise against it. But I think that's ultimately a question that the council has to look at each other and answer.
Thank you. I appreciate your response.
If I could jump on that, Lori, so if council says yes, we're going to an amendment, which that amendment wouldn't come forward till when, Barb? Ish?
In June.
June, and then we got another month to sign a contract, so these folks wouldn't even show up till the fall. Is that?
I think they
Okay.
probably would show up sooner. They reached out recently asking, hey, do we have an opening in a few weeks? Are you guys ready? And I had to
Okay.
say, no, we've got
So
this.
early fall at the earliest, which we're in the middle of budget season. So, and by the time they do their assessment, get back information, we may not even have the information for this budget round. It might be the next one.
I don't know if they only take 10 days to do it. So let me get this straight on the 67,000. This is paying for them to come out and do the assessment. This is not for the software or the module of ViewWorks. This is already in ViewWorks and we could use it ourselves right now.
So the software is there, the template, as it's called, the fields where we would plug in all the building and asset information. It's there. We just don't have the data to
Okay,
plug
so
into
we're
it.
contracting them to come out, make the assessment and input the data.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to be clear on what the contract was for.
Lori, does that reside at like the GIS level on each asset, or does that reside like the information? Where does that, and do we get like a dashboard afterwards that we get to look at, and what's that? It's some final product thing.
So I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what the visual looks like for it, but we will be able to have a better picture of spatially what is in each of the buildings.
Okay.
The GIS will show the location of the building itself, but we'll be able to see what's on the second floor of the new city hall.
I can weigh in a little bit on that, Mayor. I have talked to Zach about this, is that there is new features in the next version of the Esri platform, which is their 3D floor plan. So that is something that can come out at some point, which will help us to asset inventory and track it by location on floors.
So can I add something, Mayor? So we have a lot of assets that require regular inspections, like the elevator, the lift in this building. We have two elevators down at South Lake Stevens. Each of those require annual inspections. Right now, to track that, it's difficult within our geospatial asset system. We haven't built the facilities module, so we're not tracking that. It just doesn't happen. The way our ViewWorks is set up is it's all geospatial. So it's focused on roadway conditions, signage, park facility, park assets, things that are geospatially spread out. A building is combined in almost one point. So we haven't built that yet. So that's a pretty significant loophole for us. And it's created some operational challenges. We've missed inspections for elevators. The chief knows because he gets the notices, or fire inspections for the exit sign that's above the door there that has to be tested. This is really important. Again, I stress this is really important for us to build out our facilities maintenance program. It's an assessment, but it's also within ViewWorks building out the work order system so we can do this work.
Well, I for one think that this is well-spent money for the people to come in and do part of what we need to have done and not taking more time away from us. $6,000-7,000 is not very much for this kind of work. Having done this for a long time in the Navy, I know how many hours it really does to keep a database filled up and with the right kind of data. So I am in favor of this. And if there's no more questions, I would move that we move forward with the contract with Atkins Realis and get this done.
I guess I can second that, but I do have a comment. I just, and I touched on this last week, but I want to recognize Mayor Gailey and city staff. I really appreciate as a taxpayer and as a citizen, the efforts that are being put into not only like acknowledge what we have in the city and to be good stewards of those resources. And for me, I see this as like, hey, we've got now 100,000 square feet. That's really expensive if we have, if we are not aware of the lifespan, the life cycle of whatever's there. I just really appreciate the forethought and the vision that is taking place in the city to help us be good stewards. And so like, I've just been increasingly impressed with, I feel like it's a synergy really that's happening within city to maintain. And like, now we've got our hands almost around all of our assets, vehicles, and buildings and parks and things that we're just, I see things move in a really positive direction. This is another step in that direction. So I just want to acknowledge that. And I think it's pretty good timing last week because I had that concern, Lori, and you anticipated that and had this ready for today. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just a comment, just to Lori and Aaron, I appreciate your answers to the questions, but more importantly, sort of the bigger picture. It really helped me kind of better understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So many thanks.
Thanks.
Any other? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you for your presentation, Lori. Great job. All right, let's do some fireworks. 11B.
Let's not, it's not July 4th.
No, we're gonna do fireworks because this is Lake Stevens. We're gonna do lots of fireworks. Ordinance 1180.
All right, it's
Great.
back. It's back. Included in the general report at the request of Councilmember Daughtry, some specifics as to exactly what this ordinance does. And in summary for the folks in the audience, it makes the possession, the use and discharge of all fireworks, even legal fireworks, prohibits that on city property. Okay, there's an exception made for the public right of way where from June 26th to July 4th, when you can have legally the sale and discharge of consumer fireworks, legal fireworks, it permits you to transport them, to have them in your possession on the public right of way, but otherwise it prohibits all possession, use and discharge of all kinds of fireworks on city property. Second thing it does, it modifies the penalty provision, aligns it to state law with respect to fireworks, both misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor penalties, depending upon how much fireworks you got. So, and the third thing, it modifies the parks ordinance, which already prohibits the discharge and firing of fireworks and the throwing of all sorts of projectiles and things. It also prohibits now the possession of those objects of fireworks in the parks, and adds a new provision that allows the parks director to allow for through in her events permits to permit the throwing of projectiles or the discharge of a firework in conjunction with a permitted event, which she doesn't have the authority to do right now. So it's those three things.
Okay, so we have this ordinance in front of us. Can I get a motion for discussion?
I just want to clarify, excuse me, I just want to clarify that we've had more than one citizen concerned about fireworks that are illegal fireworks. They're already illegal. We can't make them illegal twice. So this doesn't address them in a new way in that they are already illegal. This just addresses the commercial fireworks that are sold at Safeway parking lot and that type of thing. They're already illegal to be used at 3 a.m. on July 5th. So a lot of the concerns that I've received, these things are already illegal. And this isn't addressing them. And I haven't heard anyone on council suggest that we should make them legal, right? So I just wanted to clarify that these are fireworks that are already legal. These are not Boom City fireworks. And because that's the feedback I've been hearing a lot of.
So I guess the only thing I want to touch on, I think this is the point Greg brought up at one point, the use of these on the public right of way. Are we effectively pushing them back closer towards the houses, and in that effort being counterproductive to what we're trying to do here with safety? So I don't know, something to think about, because we're allowing transport, but technically if I want to go light something off in the street, I can't do that anymore. I have to do it out of my front lawn. So something to think about.
No, I think it doesn't that the June 26th to July 4th, that
I can possess them on the right of way, but I can't use them.
As the other ordinance said, you can't light them off except on July 4th.
Right, right. This ordinance would prohibit you from lighting off your legal fireworks during that period of time within the public right of way.
Yeah, I mean, everything else, parks, city property, I'm on board with all that. I just want to make sure we understand what we're doing by pushing people out of the streets on the 4th of July.
Well, I heard the mayor say that when it's like, hey, like his neighborhood is bigger than mine. Mine, the houses are right next to each other. My neighbors on the back patio doing that. And our fences, I mean, I think that becomes more problematic. I do also acknowledge and have seen people blocking up whole roads. And so to engage in those types of activities, and that's also problematic. So, but boy, that's,
Well, and I guess I don't know the city code well enough, but to Councilmember Shipman's point, I mean, I'm assuming sitting out in the middle of the road is already illegal, so.
So I guess that kind of begs the question, what are we solving
Like
by this ordinance?
Well, like we discussed.
You just said that we've had people in the street doing a community display, which is obviously problematic. And then we've got people forcing people into their yards, which is problematic. So what are we solving?
so the main issue for me is what we discussed at the retreat was city property and the parks. I mean, mainly Director Garceau was like, hey, I can't effectively manage and protect that asset. And that's like as my takeaways, is other issues that have been discussed by members of the public and the council. We can't address some of those things. So the issue is with illegal fireworks. And they will continue to be lit off. I mean, during Seahawks games and other things, I mean, they just go on. I want to make sure that at least we're protecting the city assets. That was a step in the right direction. That our parks and city properties, we give the police the tools they can to effectively manage that, and they can sign a saying you cannot possess or use in any of the city property.
I agree with you, Steve. Protecting our parks and our public areas is something that I think is reasonable to ask of our police department as well. As they're out doing their patrols, if they see people with fireworks in the park, now we have something, concrete that is out there saying, no, you cannot possess or light them off in the park. So you can't even have them on you, at Lundin Park and Cove Park and Davies Beach and the places where we've heard of them going off in the past. So even though they were already illegal, some of them that were being shot in those areas or shut off in those areas, this clarifies you can't even have them in your possession in those areas. And so I think that helps symbolize things for our police department. Because as the chief has mentioned more than once they're in the air and they go off, there's your evidences, in thousands of pieces. So that's what I think this does the most, is this gives our officers the tool to, when they're out patrolling, if someone calls and says, hey, there's someone in our parks lighting off fireworks, they can address it.
I find it really interesting that 31 out of 38 cities in King County have banned fireworks. 13 cities in Snohomish County have banned fireworks. The county council, I don't understand why they were allowing this in the first place, but they were allowing fireworks sales in places where you can't blow them off. They just changed that in the last couple of weeks. So again, and then we hear testimony or folks saying, and we do hear this, that we're becoming the attraction point for the lighting of fireworks. And when you have this number of cities that simply don't allow it in our metropolitan area, we're creating our own problem by continuing to allow fireworks to be shot off. And I don't care if they're illegal or consumer. The consumer fireworks are probably not the big problem, but they still leave the ground and they still cause problems. So we've kind of, and I appreciate the comments that we've had and the discussion on this, but until we get to a point where we actually enforce what we have on the books, I don't know how making more things is going to be enforceable. I brought this up a couple months ago. Our own code says that the operator of a fireworks stand shall provide a flyer to all purchasers of fireworks, which identifies the dates and times which discharge of fireworks is allowed in the city of Lake Stevens. The police department will develop the flyer, which will be attached to all land use permits issued by, for the fireworks stands. The operator of those fireworks stands is responsible for reproducing and distributing the flyer to purchasers. We found out a couple months ago that's never been done. So as far as educating our public, that's not happening. I myself have witnessed at Lundin Park fireworks that were being shot off at 11:50 at night, and the police cars were probably, I'm going to say 100 feet away, witnessing the whole thing. So no enforcement took place. So, I guess we're trying to solve something, but until we get to the point of saying no to anything, we're not going to get there. And so, again, I think we're splitting the hairs. We're creating a problem of our own design. And at some point in time, I kind of feel that old adage, you don't get the light signal at the intersection until somebody gets killed or hurt. And when you talk about family groups getting together in the cul-de-sac, we have family groups that get together and confront each other over these fireworks. Not a big happy celebration. I mean, there's no reason why folks still can't get together on the 4th of July in their cul-de-sac. So I guess, I'm conflicted with all this stuff. It's kind of like, well, we've come up with something that's feels good, but it really doesn't address the problem.
Has it been addressed, possibly having it on the ballot again? Because that's probably my biggest thing on this when we talk about fireworks is we put it out for an advisory vote. And I feel very strongly if we ask our citizens, what would you like, that we should, even though we're not bound to it, that we should listen to it. So if it's changed and maybe more people are like-minded in that they would prefer to ban fireworks, that's a possibility as well. And we don't have that information.
I would think if you put it on the ballot July 5th, you'd have a lot different outcome than you do in November.
Well, just in general, any consideration in general.
I asked about that. I think it was around $10,000 or something like that to put it on the ballot.
Depends
I think,
on
when. Yeah, I think it happened last time because we were already doing something. So it was just kind of an add-on is my understanding.
Yeah, I don't think it costs us anything.
Or,
Thanks. Barb Stevens, Finance Director. If you put it on the regular ballot, when you already have other measures on there, there's no additional charge. It just gets put in there. If it's on the primary ballot, if you end up having to have a primary election before a regular ballot, it's about 30, 35. If you put it on a special, like February or one of those, it's about 70,000.
Don't get me wrong. I think a community celebration would be wonderful, where everybody can enjoy the fireworks. But I have just heard too many stories of neighbors' conflicts that take place over this issue. It is a very divisive issue, and doesn't seem to be any middle ground. And like I say, we're obviously not the only community that has problems with this. These other communities have had huge problems with them, Marysville in particular, and they took the choice to ban them. And if you talk to anybody in Marysville, you'll notice things have gone down. I would also argue that the reason why we don't have the number of calls is probably what I experienced. What's the point of calling the police department? Nothing's going to happen. They're getting 500 calls, or 500 people want to call them, and they're not going to show up. So why bother? So, is that a true test, a litmus test? I don't think so. But you talk to your neighbors. Gosh sakes, we have a problem.
So I think, thank you for sharing that. I think for me, it's going back to, one, as it's been said before, Prop 1, respecting, the 407 people more than that voted yes to maintain. And 2, our whole discussion was around preserving the parks. It was not about whether or not to ban or not ban. It seemed like this ordinance 1180 has been used as a stepping stool to then ban fireworks. Like just the discussion tonight, again, immediately goes to let's ban fireworks altogether. My feeling is that we give the police the tools they can to protect city assets. And I do have concerns about the right of way And that's already, I mean, a lot of our neighborhoods are really small. And that is a significant issue. I mean, the majority of our new homes are on 3,600 square foot lots. And the homes are very large. They're, you know, you got 3,000 plus square foot homes, with 2 and 3 car garage on there. There's not a lot of space for anyone to light those off. And I think if anything, we ban the right of way, it's going to make things, much worse. So I will note, I won't call the person out by name. We've had someone come here speak on this issue whose home burned down while their family was in there. They've spoken here this month about fireworks. Their home burned, they escaped, and they're out of their home for a year while it was rebuilt. They still are very adamant that fireworks remain legal, even though they were directly impacted by that incident. And so I think we just need to be mindful, Gary. I mean, I understand the whole neighbor issue. Like, I'm really fortunate. I've got really outstanding neighbors. We're very different, completely different. We don't agree on a lot of things, but they're really good people and respectful. And I also know people who are on the council that have neighbors that are not so much, they have neighbors that are just not very respectful people. And so I think it comes down to respecting to the extent that you can people's differences, that people are doing things that, like, I won't buy a firework, I won't light one off, you know, like I have to take the day off of work afterwards because it's so loud all the way through the night. I said, but I still acknowledge that those people are celebrating a way that's different than me, no different than me supporting the use of, for example, marijuana. When I don't use marijuana, I will support someone's right to use that. Even though I don't personally use that, because I respect their right to be able to use that. It's a similar idea.
I think that each one of us and every person out there and every single person in our city could tell a story that makes the case one way or the other. I am, and everybody here knows how I feel about this. It's not new. I'm just sort of struck tonight by the amount of time we spent talking about public safety and the importance of keeping our community safe and the use of surveillance cameras to do this, and the debate that we had around that. We have an opportunity to remove devices from our city that predictably will cause harm every single year, every year. We know that people are going to get hurt. We know that property is going to be damaged. We know that neighbors are going to fight about fireworks. We know that our veterans or people with other mental health issues are going to be harmed. We know that it's absolutely going to happen every year. And we have an opportunity to address that. And we're splitting hairs, to use your term. Our police chief has let us know that they don't have the capacity to determine whether fireworks that are being discharged are always consumer fireworks or illegal fireworks. And that the best way is a total ban to enforce not having this damage happen year after year. If this ordinance comes forward tonight, I plan to vote no, because I don't think it goes far enough. I think that we have a responsibility to do what we can to keep our community safe. And I don't think this does that.
I guess so. You've made a similar comment in the past, and I've actually thought a lot about it because it was a good one. And I think what I keep coming back to is, on this particular issue, at one point we asked that community, do you want to be kept safe from this, or do you want to be able to light off fireworks? And they said, we want to be able to light off fireworks. And so if this was being done in a vacuum, like if I didn't have that information, I would be right there with you, you know, hey, let's keep people safe. But they've said, I want the right to be able to do this. And now that we've asked the question, I just can't tell them, sorry, we're going to ignore that. That's where I'm at.
And so to respond to that, I absolutely value the input of our citizens 100%. I think that giving a group of people the decision about whether we should keep our community safe or not. I think that adds an extra layer of responsibility that we need to consider. And the number of people who participated was less than a quarter of our current population. So I don't feel like that's representative, in my opinion.
And that's why I'm saying if we can get it back on a ballot, not a special ballot, that's going to cost a lot of money, but get it on a ballot and let's see, has the tide changed? In the meanwhile, what can we do about illegal fireworks? It seems like that's a question that does not have a solution. But in the meanwhile, because I hear what you're saying, Angie. I mean, and I agree with what she says. We know every year people are going to get hurt. It's not uncommon to know somebody who's been hurt. But for me, it falls back on, we put it on a ballot and our citizens, this is what they came back with. So if the tide has changed, I think it's worthy to put it back on a ballot and see. I think it's always whenever you put something else for an advisory ballot, you have to be willing to say, okay, I'm gonna let this supersede what my personal opinion is.
Exactly.
Because we've asked for our citizens, what are your opinions? And for the people who didn't turn out to vote, maybe they don't have a strong feeling one way or another. Why people don't vote is a personal decision. They're not required to. But for the people who took the time to fill out that ballot and turn in that ballot, they voted by almost 500 people to keep them. And like I said, if that tide has changed, where now that majority is now saying we don't want those in our city anymore, I think that's worthy of putting it on the ballot since we let the citizens decide this.
Yeah. And I mean, I would agree with that while not everyone voted, everyone had the opportunity to vote.
Yes.
And that's the best we can do. But I think we kind of beat this horse to death yet again. So to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, I would ask that we, make a decision on this on this ordinance tonight, whether it's, amending it to allow them in the right of way or proceeding as written. But I think we've got something in front of us that's at least a step towards a middle ground, I hope. And I think we could do something with this tonight if we focus on it.
So I just want to comment. I want to respond, Kim, to your, I think the intent for which it bothers me, and it bothers me more so that as citizens tell me that I should disregard the vote because things have changed and said, hey, even if that was the intent of you putting it on the ballot to respect the will of the voters, that there's no reason for you to honor that. I don't want to be that person that says, hey, I'm going to put this on the ballot. And the sentiment was that we would accept the will of the voters. And literally within a year, we were pushing the people that were there that said, let's put it on the ballot. The assumption was that it would fail and that we would then just ban fireworks like Snohomish County did. So to my surprise, it passed in Lake Stevens. And then immediately those people at the retreat in Monroe were pushing for a ban, even though, and so I struggle with that because my intent was to respect the will of the voters. Even though it is a public safety issue, there's other things that I think are safety issues in the community that I can't really impact that would also impact safety. But so Kim, I mean, it was just 2.5 years ago that we asked the voters and like how many we're going to keep asking until we get, is our intent to say we just want to ban them. So let's finally get to, the number of votes we want to get that happen. I don't know. I don't know what the timeline is to do that, but certainly if we are going to do that, we need to either A, make it binding, or B, and have a time period attached to it. So we're not going and revisiting it, 6 months or a year after because we didn't get the outcome we wanted. So I think if we're disingenuous, the public will end up like these other cities that have school ballot measures that fail repeatedly because they are not genuine and sincere and putting forth the request to the public, and the citizens are smart and they'll see through the facade.
Motion, no motion.
I say we need to find an answer to this. I think we need a motion. I would like to consider allowing it on public ways, just during the 4th of July. So it's not on people's back decks and backyards and shooting into their neighbor's back deck and backyard.
So is there a strike that we could do to the ordinance tonight to do this thing?
Yeah. I'm just,
'Cause
my lawyer's mind is thinking of the downside here, and it's sort of an invitation. If we accept, say, section 1.1, where we have the exception, where it talks about accepting the possession of consumer fireworks on the public right of way during this time. I mean, if you strike that and just say accepting public right of way, then the prohibition wouldn't apply to the public right of way. Although that's sort of an invitation, go shoot your fireworks on the public right of way. And do we want to do that?
Well, and I guess that's it.
And if somebody gets hurt on the, as a result of that, my lawyer mind tells me what the downsides of that is, but we could, if that's, if you wanted to do that, we could do that.
Key distinction, the way that was phrased, because I heard a similar thing. We're not saying, we're not saying it's not allowed. We're not saying you can go do this now. We're just not putting that in the ordinance. So if you go play in the street, that's still illegal, but.
Well, I say we just leave it the way it is then, because it kind of means the same thing, right?
I'd be willing to, at this point on this, I'd be willing to move ahead as written, just to make sure the parks and other city property are taken care of.
Is that a motion?
That is, I move that we approve ordinance 1180 on the use, discharge, and possession of fireworks in public places.
If I could just request, I'll second that. If I request a roll call vote, so
Okay, so I have a motion to approve ordinance number 1180. And I have a second, and I have a request for a roll call vote. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Thank you.
You wanted fireworks.
Yeah.
Greg, I just want to thank you for your efforts to help with this. I mean, it's been a undesirable task. I mean, I guess that's the nicest way to put it. But there's been a lot of different input from the council and from the public, and I appreciate your efforts to try and give us the best information to come, to this vote that we're about to take.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll do a call for the vote.
All right, this will be a random vote. Councilmember Durstad.
No.
Councilmember Donahue.
Aye.
Councilmember Peter Sagan.
No.
Councilmember Ewing.
Yes.
Councilmember Shipman.
Yes.
And Councilmember Daughtry.
No.
Is this a time in which the mayor votes? We're tied.
Yeah, now the tables have turned.
Where's Marcus?
Greg, is that the?
No, there's a. I'm gonna have to look at that statute. I don't think he can, not on this type of ordinance.
Not on this type of ordinance? Okay.
Yeah.
Would that be in our council procedures? Let me look. It doesn't happen that often.
Not.
5-minute recess?
Yeah.
Yes? Is that how much, Greg, you need? How much study time do you need?
Oh, just a few minutes.
Let's take 5 minutes.
Greg.
Doesn't pass.
Okay, it is 7:52 and we are back in session.
Just quick, we
Okay,
did check,
great.
we did check on the statute and the mayor is permitted to vote in the case of a tie on matters other than ordinances and matters that cause the appropriation of money. And so this is an ordinance and he's not permitted by statute to vote. That's council member's job.
Okay, so the motion fails due to a tie. There we go. Now you know. Okay,
Move to adjourn?
amen. Motion adjourned. All those in favor?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a great night. Go do something fun with your neighbor.